Welcome to the Deep Dive. For those looking to truly understand the core of extraordinary achievement. Today, we're embarking on a really transformative journey. A deep dive into Robert Greene's acclaimed book, Mastery. Now, you might think you know what mastery is. Perhaps you picture, a natural talent, a genius at work.
Right, someone just born with it.
Exactly, someone born with an extraordinary gift.
Yeah.
But Greene fundamentally challenges those common misconceptions.
He really does.
Our mission today is to sort of cut through that noise and give you a shortcut to understanding the fundamental principles behind extraordinary achievement, specifically tailored for you. Think of this as your guide to unlocking, profound capability.
And it's so much more than just, achieving great things or building an impressive career. What Greene meticulously lays out in Mastery is a fundamental transformation, not just of what you do, but of your entire mind and character. It makes you ask a really powerful central question, one that can genuinely shift your perspective. What if the secrets to genius, to becoming truly masterful in any field, aren't about some innate, unteachable talent, but rather a process that is accessible to absolutely everyone, a path that we can all, consciously walk?
That's the exciting part, isn't it? We're going to unpack that mystery step by step. Over the next little while, we'll uncover how to discover your unique calling, what Greene calls your life's task.
Right.
Then navigate the crucial apprenticeship phase, which is far more than just learning skills.
Much more.
From there, we'll dive into mastering social dynamics, unleashing profound creativity, and ultimately synthesizing all that knowledge into what Greene defines as true ultimate mastery.
Okay, let's truly unpack this.
Let's do it. Discover your calling, the life's task.
So let's begin at the very genesis of this journey, discovering your calling, what Robert Greene refers to as your life's task. He describes this as an inherent inner force, almost like a magnetic pull, something that quietly seeks to guide you toward what you are meant to accomplish in the precious time you have to live. Yeah.
It's not about imposing a purpose from the outside, but rather about looking deeply inward, learning who you truly are at your core, and reconnecting with that innate driving force.
Exactly.
Greene posits that once you recognize this life's task with clarity, the path to your proper career, your true vocation, and indeed everything else will begin to fall into place with a surprising naturalness.
It just sort of clicks.
And here's the crucial part. It's truly never too late to start this process, regardless of where you are in life right now.
That's so important to remember. What's truly fascinating here is that this life's task isn't some vague, ephemeral spiritual notion or, a mystical quest.
Right, it's grounded.
Greene grounds it firmly, describing it as a primal inclination, an almost guttural voice emanating from your deepest individuality, telling you which activities and subjects intrinsically suit your character, which ones just feel right.
That gut feeling.
Exactly. This uniqueness, he points out, isn't merely poetic. It's a profound scientific fact. Genetically speaking, every single one of us is unique. Our exact genetic makeup has literally never happened before and will never be repeated.
Wow.
This inherent uniqueness subtly reveals itself through innate preferences for particular activities or subjects. Perhaps it's a deep attraction to patterns in music or the elegant logic of mathematics, the fluid motion of certain sports, the challenge of solving puzzle-like problems, or, the satisfying process of tinkering and building things. These aren't just hobbies, they're whispers of your primal inclination.
Little clues.
Yeah, exactly. The profound danger, however, lies in succumbing to passivity. We live in a world of powerful social pressures.
That's rapidly.
The desire to fit in with a group, the subtle or sometimes not so subtle influence of parental expectations for a comfortable, maybe lucrative career.
Sure, the sensible path.
Right. Or even the pervasive influence of media dictating what success looks like. All these can act as a formidable counterforce. You might unconsciously begin to feel that what makes you inherently different, what defines your uniqueness, is somehow embarrassing or awkward.
Yeah, or just not practical.
Exactly. Or even painful. If these counterforces become strong enough, you can lose complete contact with that inner voice, with who you really are at your core.
You lose yourself.
You do. Your inclinations and desires then become modeled on those of others, leading to this profound sense of emptiness, a lack of larger purpose, and a gnawing dissatisfaction in your life, even if you achieve, conventional success on the outside.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's also crucial for you, the listener, to understand that your career or vocational path isn't a rigid, perfectly straight line.
No, life isn't like that.
It's a dynamic journey, full of twists, turns, unexpected detours. You typically start by choosing a field or a position that roughly corresponds to your inclinations, something that offers a good enough match to get your foot in the door.
Get started somewhere.
Right. This initial position is vital because it offers you room to maneuver, a platform to learn fundamental skills, and importantly, a way to support yourself. You don't want to begin with something overly lofty or, unrealistically ambitious.
Got to pay the bills.
You need to make a living, establish some confidence, some credibility. Once on this an initial path, you begin to discover certain side routes, particular areas or aspects of the field that deeply attract you, while other facets might leave you cold or even repel you.
You learn what you don't like, too.
Precisely. You adjust, you explore, perhaps you even move to a related but narrower field, continually learning more about yourself and refining your direction, but always expanding off your solid skill base. Just like Leonardo da Vinci eventually took what he did for others and, through his unique inclinations, made it profoundly his own, so too can you.
This is where it gets really interesting and practical.
Yeah.
How do we actually tap into this hidden force, this primal inclination? Greene offers some compelling and really actionable strategies.
Yeah, he does.
Our first strategy is deeply introspective, to return to your origins, or what Greene calls the primal inclination strategy. For many masters throughout history, their core inclination, their life's task, often presented itself with remarkable clarity in childhood. It might have been triggered by something seemingly simple, like an object or a passing experience that sparked a deep, visceral response.
Something just clicked.
Yeah. As we get older, however, and our minds become more sophisticated, these powerful early signals can unfortunately get buried beneath layers of formal education, social expectations, the relentless demands of adult life.
They get drowned out.
Totally. The goal here isn't to create a passion, but to rediscover one that already exists within you.
Precisely. To illustrate, consider Albert Einstein. At just 5 years old, his father gave him a compass.
Just a simple compass.
Yeah. And he was instantly transfixed by the needle, which changed direction uncannily as he moved the compass around. The sheer wonder of an invisible magnetic force operating on this needle, unseen yet undeniably powerful, touched him to his core. This simple toy ignited a profound question. What if there were other forces in the world, equally invisible yet powerful, that were undiscovered or not yet understood? For the rest of his life, all his interests and ideas, his groundbreaking theories, would revolve around this fundamental question of hidden forces and fields.
Amazing.
He would often reflect back to that compass as the spark that ignited his lifelong fascination. Another powerful example is the renowned film director Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, yeah.
When he was 9, his parents gave his brother a cinematograph for Christmas. Ingmar was utterly captivated and felt an irresistible urge to possess it, trading his own toys to acquire it.
He had to have it.
He really did. Once in his possession, he hurried into a large closet, a private sanctuary, and watched the flickering images it projected on the wall. To him, it seemed like something had magically come to life each time he turned it on. To produce such magic, to bring images to life that would become his lifelong obsession, his undeniable life's task.
Those are powerful stories, aren't they? So Greene challenges us, you the listener, to become a detective in your own past, to dig for signs of these inclinations in your earliest years.
Yeah, do that digging.
Look for the traces in visceral, almost physical reactions to something simple. Was there a desire to repeat an activity you never tired of, even when others moved on? Was there a subject that stimulated an unusual, almost obsessive degree of curiosity? Or perhaps feelings of power, of deep engagement and flow, attached to particular actions? It's not about creating something new. It's about refinding what has been buried inside of you all along, what was uniquely yours from the start.
Reconnecting.
Reconnecting with this core at any age can reignite that primitive attraction back to life, indicating a path that can ultimately become your life's task, the very essence of your direction.
Now let's turn to a more strategic approach once you have a sense of your calling. Occupy the perfect niche, which Greene often illustrates with what he calls the Ramachandran path. True mastery, he explains, isn't about fiercely competing in an already crowded field, elbowing your way through a sea of rivals.
No, that sounds exhausting.
It is. Instead, it's about having the strategic foresight and patience to find and then cultivate a truly unique niche within the broader ecology of your chosen field, a niche that you can then truly dominate, where you become the undisputed expert.
Your own little corner.
Exactly. This is never a simple, straightforward process, and it definitely requires patience, a keen eye for opportunity, and a particular evolving strategy.
And a great modern example of this is a neurobotics expert whose journey perfectly illustrates this principle. She started her career in traditional robotics, working on the design of large-scale robots at MIT, specifically focusing on the intricate mechanics of robot hands.
Right, very specific.
She was always fascinated by the complexity of the human hand, seeing it as a chance to combine her interests in mathematics, physiology, and the physical act of building things. But she quickly felt a critical lack in her knowledge.
Something was missing.
Yeah, she realized she couldn't fully understand the design challenges for prosthetic limbs without a deeper grasp of the brain-hand connection. So she made a deliberate choice. She decided to gain an additional degree in neuroscience.
Wow, okay, big move.
Huge. This was just the beginning. Her hunger for understanding led her to continually integrate new fields of science into her expertise, ultimately culminating in the creation of a completely new interdisciplinary field, one that she boldly dubbed neurobotics.
She made her own field.
Pretty much. This new domain, which focused on the design of robots with simulated human neurology, allowed her to freely combine all of her diverse interests. This gave her immense power in the scientific world, precisely because she wasn't just doing what others were doing. She had carved out her own unique territory.
That's the Ramachandran path in action, really.
Yeah.
A blueprint for finding your unique domain.
You start broadly, maybe in a foundational field like medicine or electrical engineering.
A wide base. Yeah. From that broad base, you actively look for side paths, specific areas or subdisciplines that particularly attract you, that spark your curiosity. For Ramachandran himself, it was the science of perception and optics. When it's possible, you make a strategic move to this narrower field. You continue this process, progressively narrowing your focus, deepening your expertise, and cross-pollinating ideas until you eventually hit upon a totally unoccupied niche.
The sweet spot.
The narrower and more specialized, the better. Often. In many ways, this niche corresponds precisely to your own uniqueness, much as Ramachandran's particular blend of neurology corresponded to his own primal sense of feeling like an exception, someone who saw things differently. It's about patiently, strategically, and courageously carving out your unique domain, becoming indispensable in a way others cannot replicate. 2. The apprenticeship phase. Transforming mind and character.
So with a clearer sense of your calling, what does this all mean for the next critical stage, the apprenticeship phase? Greene emphasizes that this phase is often deeply misunderstood by those embarking on it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not merely about gaining skills or accumulating information, although that's certainly a part of it. He says the goal is far, far deeper than that, something truly transformative.
That's right. The overarching principle of this phase, one that must be engraved deeply in your mind, is that the goal of an apprenticeship is not money, a good position, a fancy title, or even a diploma.
Not the external stuff.
No, it is instead the fundamental transformation of your mind and character. You enter a career as a naive outsider, your head often full of misconceptions and fantasies about what the future holds.
Yeah, we all start there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Your knowledge at this point is largely subjective, based on emotions, limited experience, and often what you wish were true. This phase grounds you in reality, in the objective world as it truly is.
A reality check.
A big one. You learn discipline, how to focus, how to handle complexity, and most crucially, how to receive, internalize, and effectively implement criticism.
That's a tough one for many.
It really is. In the end, you transform yourself from someone who might be impatient and scattered into someone disciplined, focused, and resilient, ultimately mastering yourself and all your inherent weaknesses.
Wow.
Greene notes that a significant problem with youthful dependency is that we carry habits from formal schooling learning passively from books, or relying solely on teachers for direction, that are largely unsuited for the self-directed, often chaotic real world of work.
Right. The real world doesn't give you assignments.
Exactly. We tend to be socially naive, unprepared for the political games people inevitably play, mistakenly believing that what matters most is gaining attention or making friends. These misconceptions are often brutally exposed in the unforgiving light of the real world, which makes the apprenticeship phase both challenging and utterly essential.
That truly makes perfect sense. It's about building a whole new foundation, not just a skill set.
So given this profound goal, how do we practically navigate this transformative phase? Let's delve into the specific strategies Greene offers.
Our first strategy for this phase is deep observation, or what Greene calls the passive mode. When you enter a new career or environment, you're stepping into a complex world with its own established rules, unspoken procedures, and intricate social dynamics.
A whole ecosystem.
Right. People within that field have compiled knowledge for decades, even centuries, on how to get things done effectively, with each generation often refining and improving on the last. Beyond the technical, there are also specific workplace conventions, subtle rules of behavior, and underlying power relationships that dictate who holds influence and why.
Yeah, the unwritten rules. Your primary task upon entering this world is to observe and absorb its reality as deeply and impartially as possible. You are like an anthropologist studying an alien culture, attuned to all its nuances, its hidden conventions, and its unique rhythms. Your job isn't to moralize, to immediately judge, or to complain about what you see. Just watch and understand it. Get a complete and accurate lay of the land. Every task you are given, no matter how menial or seemingly insignificant, offers invaluable opportunities to observe this world at work.
Even fetching coffee.
Even fetching coffee. No detail about the people within it. Their habits, their interactions, their subtle cues is too trivial. Everything you see or hear is a sign for you to decode, to piece together.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. Over time, as you accumulate these observations, you begin to see behind the appearances, to grasp the unspoken truths. As you amass this rich information, you can then begin to analyze why these rules and power dynamics exist, moving from pure observation to deeper analysis, honing your reasoning skills, but only after months of careful, patient attention.
Patience is key.
Crucial. This sustained, deep observation eventually allows skills to become so hardwired in your brain that they transform into tacit knowledge embedded in your very body and nervous system.
It becomes second nature.
Exactly, leading to that miraculous flow state where your mind is totally absorbed and your actions seem effortless.
A fantastic illustration of this deep observation in action is Benjamin Franklin's early experience in London.
Ah, Franklin again.
Yes. He initially went there misled by a seemingly powerful figure, Governor Keith, who had promised to bankroll his own printing shop. Franklin, young and ambitious, was very naive at the time.
Like many of us starting out.
Totally. And the governor's promises never materialized, leaving him alone and without money, far from home. This harsh reality forced him to quickly find a position in a London printing shop. Here he encountered a strange British custom. 5 times a day, his fellow printers would take a break to drink a pint of beer.
5 times.
5 times. Franklin, ever the pragmatist, refused to contribute to the beer fund, as he disliked drinking during work and didn't want to give up his hard-earned wages for others to, well, ruin their health.
Made sense.
He spoke honestly and logically about his principles, and surprisingly, they accepted his decision. Later, back in Philadelphia, he quietly and strategically turned the tables on his next employer, Samuel Keimer.
Okay, how so?
He used his managerial position to diligently build relationships with customers and successful merchants, learning their needs and expectations. He experimented with new manufacturing methods learned in England and taught himself engraving and ink making, expanding his skill set.
Building his arsenal.
Exactly. Crucially, he carefully cultivated one of his pupils to be a first-rate assistant, training his future support system. Just when he suspected Keimer was about to fire him, he shrewdly left and set up his own highly successful shop.
Smart move.
With financial backing already secured, greater business knowledge, a solid customer base, and a fully trained assistant ready to go. Franklin noted how free he was from bitterness or anger toward Keimer. For him, it was all just strategic maneuvers on a chessboard.
Wow.
Played with a clear and level head, demonstrating a profound grasp of the environment he'd observed so closely.
That's brilliant observation put into action.
Our second strategy, vital for acceleration, is to surrender to the master.
Yeah.
Mentorship.
Yes.
Crucial. Why are mentors so essential, so non-negotiable on the path to mastery? Life is inherently short, right? And your most creative, energetic years are generally concentrated in your late 20s and into your 40s.
That window.
Right. While you can certainly learn through books or isolated self-practice, it's often a slow, hit-or-miss process. Books aren't tailored to your unique circumstances.
No personalized feedback.
Exactly. And self-practice often lacks the immediate, focused, and personalized feedback that is crucial for rapid improvement and course correction. A good mentor provides tailored, practical knowledge and critical insights far more efficiently than any other method.
Indeed. Mentors fill those crucial knowledge gaps and provide focused, direct feedback that you simply can't get from reading a textbook. If you're clever and observant, you can even act as a kind of midwife, subtly getting them to analyze their own creative process and insights for you.
Mining their wisdom.
Exactly, mining all kinds of rich, often unconscious ideas in the process. Consider Michael Faraday, who, despite humble origins and a lack of formal education, used the book The Improvement of the Mind as his primary mentor.
A book as a mentor.
Yeah. He didn't just passively read about scientific discoveries, he actively recreated the experiments that led to them, getting his hands dirty and experiencing the science firsthand.
Learning by doing.
Totally. He also dutifully attended public lectures on science, taking meticulous, detailed notes, and then reworking those notes into an entire self-created scientific encyclopedia. This active, self-directed, and incredibly disciplined apprenticeship allowed his knowledge of science to grow by leaps and bounds, essentially creating his own mentorship experience.
That's incredible discipline.
It really is. Another fascinating and perhaps cautionary example is the complex relationship between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud.
Oh, the Titans.
Right. Jung, at 31, a brilliant young psychiatrist, began to correspond with the already established Freud, who was 51. Jung admired Freud as a pioneer, but harbored a deep-seated dislike for his emphasis on sex as the sole determining factor in neurosis.
A key difference.
A big one. Despite this, their correspondence developed a good rapport, and Jung, open to learning, questioned the master deeply. When they finally met in Vienna, their intellectual connection was so strong they talked nonstop for 13 hours.
13 hours.
Unbelievable. Freud was genuinely charmed, seeing Jung as a creative successor. For Jung, Freud was the grounding father figure and mentor he needed, providing a critical framework. However, about 5 years into the relationship, Jung's initial ambivalence returned. He began to find Freud dictatorial, chafing at having to follow Freudian dogma as he developed his own, often divergent insights.
Where student surpasses or diverges.
Exactly. This trajectory shows the crucial need to eventually move beyond mere submission, to eventually forge your own distinct path after absorbing the master's wisdom.
You have to break away eventually.
You do. Contrast this with V.S. Ramachandran, who was utterly mesmerized by Richard Gregory's lecture in Cambridge. Gregory had a flair for drama and humor, performing thought-provoking demonstrations. Ramachandran, emboldened, went up after the talk, and an instant rapport formed.
Instant connection.
Totally. Gregory immediately invited him to stay at his Sherlock Holmes-like house, filled with fascinating Victorian instruments and skeletons. Gregory became a lifelong mentor who inspired and gently guided Ramachandran's unique style of speculation and experiment, fostering a truly symbiotic and enduring mentorship that allowed Ramachandran to flourish.
So mentorship can look very different. These examples powerfully highlight the irreplaceable value of mentorship. If a perfect, all-encompassing mentor isn't available, Greene suggests a clever alternative. Find several mentors in your immediate environment.
Spread it around.
Yet each filling strategic gaps in your knowledge, or providing expertise in different areas. Or, like Faraday, you can proactively convert books into living mentors by personalizing their voice, interacting deeply with the material, diligently taking notes, and striving to make the spirit, not just the letter, of their work come alive in your own practice.
Active reading.
Very active engagement. It transforms passive consumption into active learning.
Yeah.
Our third strategy is perhaps the most uncomfortable, but profoundly necessary. To gaze deep into the mentor's mirror.
Ooh.
This means actively accepting and even seeking out critical feedback, no matter how painful or confronting it might feel. Our culture often shies away from stern, realistic criticism, right? Preferring soft and flattering self-help advice.
Feels better in the moment.
It does. But Greene argues, quite controversially, that this indulgence and fear of hurting people's feelings is far more abusive in the long run.
How so?
It makes it incredibly difficult for individuals to accurately gauge where they truly stand, to develop genuine self-discipline, and ultimately it weakens their will and significantly hinders their path to mastery.
That's a profound point, and one that really cuts against modern sensibilities. A powerful illustration of this relentless mirroring is the relationship between the Zen master Hakuin Zenji and his master Shoju.
Okay, Zen masters.
Yeah. Hakuin, as a child, possessed a relentless energy and a fervent spirit. At 11, a sermon about the torments of hell filled him with intense anguish, driving him to seek answers. By 14, he was fully committed to pursuing Zen Buddhism.
Driven from a young age.
Very driven. He was attracted by stories of masters overcoming suffering to reach enlightenment. He experienced several profound enlightenment experiences throughout his training, but each time he ran to Shoju expecting praise and validation.
Look what I did.
Exactly. Shoju would instead push him further, often with harsh words, making him feel utter worthlessness as a student, no matter how great Hakuin felt his breakthrough had been.
Wow, tough love doesn't even cover it.
Not even close. Shoju's core philosophy was this. Students inevitably stop somewhere, holding on to dead ideas, flattering themselves that they have finally grasped the truth. But true Zen never stops. It never congeals into such fixed truths.
Always moving.
Always. That's why, Shoju believed, everyone must constantly be pushed to the abyss, forced to start over, and to confront their utter worthlessness in the face of ever deeper reality. Without suffering, without doubts, the mind will inevitably rest on comfortable cliches and stay there rigid and complacent until the spirit ultimately dies.
Intense.
Not even enlightenment itself is enough. You must continually start over and challenge yourself. This relentless, often painful mirroring, however brutal it seemed, prevented stagnation and fostered a profound, ongoing path to true mastery for Hakuin.
Okay, strategy 4 emphasizes forward motion. Keep expanding your horizons. While it's crucial to submit to reality during apprenticeship and meticulously learn the established ways of your field, Greene stresses that you absolutely do not stay in one narrow place.
Right, don't get stuck.
You must continually work against any self-imposed or external limitations, and perpetually strive to expand your knowledge and experience beyond what is immediately required.
A great example of this relentless expansion is the writer Zora Neale Hurston. Her childhood in Eatonville, Florida, an all-black township governed entirely by its own citizens, was a kind of golden age where racism had no immediate meaning for her.
A unique perspective.
Very. She was a spirited and strong-willed girl who wandered the town alone, absorbing stories and life. Later in life, after struggling immensely to make her way and becoming the first black female writer to make a living solely from her work, her story reveals the bare reality of the apprenticeship phase. No one is truly going to help you or give you direction. You largely have to forge your own path.
It's on you.
It's on you, and with tremendous energy and initiative. When you enter this phase, you generally begin at the lowest position, with limited access to knowledge or broader insights. If you're not careful, you'll accept this restricted status.
The comfort zone.
Exactly. Instead, like Hurston, you must actively struggle against any limitations and continually work to expand your horizons. Greene emphasizes that reading books and materials that go beyond what is required for your job or studies is always a good starting point.
Read widely.
Yeah. Being exposed to ideas from the wide world, from different disciplines and perspectives, will tend to develop an insatiable hunger for more and more knowledge, making it harder to remain satisfied or complacent in any narrow corner, which is precisely the point of expanding your horizons, creating a dynamic, growing mind.
Our fifth strategy, seemingly counterintuitive, is crucial for developing resilience. Move toward resistance and pain.
The uncomfortable stuff.
Exactly. This means actively welcoming the uncomfortable, even embracing the difficult and arduous parts of the learning process, rather than avoiding them.
This principle is beautifully illustrated by the story of Bill Bradley, the legendary basketball player and later a U.S. Senator.
Ah, yes.
He fell in love with basketball around age 10, but despite being tall, he had no natural gift for the game. He was slow, gawky, couldn't jump high.
Not a natural athlete, surprisingly.
Not at all. None of the athletic aspects of the game came easily to him. He quickly realized he'd have to compensate for his innate inadequacies through sheer, unwavering practice.
Hard work.
Immense hard work. So he devised one of the most rigorous and efficient training routines in sports history. He got the keys to the high school gym and created a rigid, non-negotiable schedule. 3.5 hours of practice after school and on Sundays, 8 hours every Saturday, and 3 hours a day during the summer.
That's dedication.
For years, he stuck to this without fail. In the gym, he'd put 10-pound weights in his shoes to strengthen his legs. He meticulously identified his greatest weaknesses, which he decided were his dribbling and overall slowness, and worked on them relentlessly, transforming them into strengths.
Turning weakness into strength.
He also focused on becoming a superior passer to make up for his lack of speed. In the end, his 5 hours of intense, focused, and uncomfortable work were the equivalent of 10 for most people, and others marveled at the apparent ease with which he accomplished his deeds, unaware of the pain he embraced.
That's truly incredible, a testament to sheer willpower. It really drives home what Greene calls the magic ingredient of time and consistent focused practice, particularly pushing through discomfort. Greene explains that assuming your practice proceeds at a steady, deliberate level over days, weeks, and months, certain elements of the skill literally become hardwired in your brain. Slowly, the entire skill becomes internalized, part of your nervous system, almost automatic.
Like muscle memory, but for everything.
Exactly. Your mind is no longer mired in the painstaking details of execution, but can see the larger picture, anticipate moves, and respond fluidly. It's a miraculous sensation that practice leads you to, regardless of your initial innate talent level. The only real impediment is yourself and your internal emotional reactions: boredom, panic, frustration, insecurity, doubt.
The mental game.
Right. You can't simply suppress these. They're normal human emotions, experienced by everyone, including the masters. What you can do, however, is cultivate deep faith in the process itself. The boredom will eventually go away as confidence grows. The panic disappears after repeated exposure.
Okay.
And the frustration, surprisingly, is actually a sign of progress, a signal that your mind is actively processing complexity and simply requires more consistent practice. The insecurities you feel transform into their powerful opposites when you gain true mastery.
That's encouraging.
What's truly fascinating here is that this very suffering, this discomfort of pushing through resistance, is actually a crucial precursor to the profound pleasures that mastery can bring, making the eventual flow state feel even more rewarding.
You earn it. Our final strategy for the apprenticeship phase is to apprentice yourself in failure.
Learn from mistakes.
Exactly, but deeper than that, this perspective fundamentally reframes failures not as embarrassing setbacks or something to be ashamed of, but as invaluable means of education, powerful lessons that cannot be learned any other way.
Data points.
Precisely. Failures, Greene argues, reveal your inadequacies and the inherent flaws in your ideas, often more clearly and impartially than direct feedback from other people, which can frequently be political, self-serving, or biased.
Right, people might sugarcoat things.
They do. When a machine malfunctions, you don't take it personally. It's a blessing in disguise,
Wow.
objectively showing you inherent flaws in its design or function and pointing toward means of improvement. The same, Greene argues, should apply to any venture, any project, any idea you undertake.
A prime example here is Henry Ford. At 23, he instantly fell in love with the gas-powered engine.
Another early spark.
Yeah. Despite his incredible mechanical genius and uncanny ability to visualize complex parts and how they functioned, he initially lacked the requisite business knowledge for mass production. His initial entrepreneurial ventures failed, often spectacularly.
That's stark.
Very. But these very mistakes and failures, these brutal lessons from reality, were precisely his most powerful means of education. They taught him practical intelligence, patience, and a methodical way of solving problems that could be applied to anything.
Learning the hard way.
He learned what his audience truly wanted, and more importantly, the often vast discrepancy between his brilliant ideas and how they actually affected the public, how they landed in the real world. His failures, in essence, provided him with a crucial, unbiased assessment of his ideas and his own capabilities, forcing him to adapt and refine his approach until he found his path to success.
This brings us to what Greene calls the hacker model for the modern age, beautifully exemplified by Paul Graham, the influential co-founder of Y Combinator, a startup accelerator.
Y Combinator, big influence.
Huge! The hacker model suggests you want to learn as many skills as possible, following the direction that circumstances and your deepest interests organically lead you to. Like a hacker, you value the process of self-discovery, of making things of the highest possible quality, and of constant iteration.
Trial and error.
Exactly. You actively avoid the trap of following one fixed, rigid career path, preferring to move by continuous trial and error, experimenting. You're not always sure where it will all lead, but you take full advantage of the openness of information and the possibilities for creating something novel.
Embracing uncertainty.
Right. Graham's own accidental creation of ViaWeb, an early web application that sold to Yahoo for $50 million, and then Y Combinator itself, represented his ultimate hack, something he came upon not by grand design, but by accident, and then tirelessly improved through his own process of trial and error.
Serendipity plus hard work.
Precisely. Or consider the microprocessor. Originally developed for traffic lights, not computers, it was later adapted by hackers engineers who weren't afraid to experiment with small, unworthy computers, seeing possibilities others missed.
Seeing potential where others didn't. The simple yet profound lesson here is that what constitutes true creativity is not a fixed talent, but the openness and adaptability of our spirit. When we see or experience something, we must cultivate the ability to look at it from several angles to see possibilities beyond the obvious, the conventional ones.
Think outside the box.
Totally. It's about not holding on to our original ideas out of stubbornness or ego, but rather moving fluidly with what presents itself in the moment, exploring and exploiting different branches and contingencies that emerge. In this way, creativity and adaptability become inseparable, two sides of the same coin, constantly evolving and refining your path. 3. The art of human connection. Social intelligence.
Okay, let's move on.
Moving on to a crucial, yet often overlooked aspect of mastery that can make or break your journey. Social intelligence.
Oh, the people part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Greene states quite directly that often the greatest obstacle to our pursuit of mastery, the biggest drain on our energy and focus, comes not from the technical challenges of our field, but from the emotional strain we experience when dealing with the inherent resistance and subtle manipulations of the people around us.
Oh, yeah. Office politics, difficult personalities.
Right. If we're not careful, our minds can become completely absorbed in endless political intrigues, petty battles, and interpersonal dramas, diverting vital energy and attention away from our true purpose, away from the work itself.
It's a huge energy suck. What's truly fascinating here is Greene's definition of social intelligence. It's the profound ability to see people in the most realistic, objective light possible.
Seeing clearly.
Yes. This means consciously moving past our usual self-absorption, learning to focus deeply on others, meticulously reading their behavior in the moment, not just their words, but their body language, their tone, seeing what truly motivates them.
What's underneath?
Exactly, and discerning any possible manipulative tendencies. Success attained without this intelligence, he argues, is fleeting, fragile, and not true mastery. It simply won't last.
Makes sense.
The principal problem we face, he explains, is our pervasive, naive tendency to project our own emotional needs and desires onto other people. We misread their intentions, we misunderstand their actions, and we react in ways that cause confusion, conflict, and unnecessary drama.
We see what we want to see.
Pretty much. This dynamic, he points out, often tragically reenacts childhood family patterns where we tend to idealize or demonize others, preventing us from seeing them as they truly are.
So given this pervasive naivete, how do we practically overcome it? How do we shed these limiting projections and cultivate a more accurate and ultimately more effective social awareness?
Good question.
Our first strategy to tackle this is to discard the naive perspective. It's about actively challenging our deeply ingrained, often subconscious, preconceived notions of others and, equally important, of ourselves. This is where real growth begins.
Returning to Benjamin Franklin, his early London experience was a profound, almost brutal turning point.
That Governor Keith situation again.
Exactly. The way he had been misled and how badly he had initially misread the situation shattered his youthful naivete. Only when he fully grasped and admitted to himself how deeply naive he had been could he take the necessary, often painful steps to move past it.
Facing the truth about yourself.
Yeah. His subsequent deliberate focus on gaining social intelligence fundamentally transformed him into the preeminent observer of human nature. A man with an almost magical ability to see into people, to understand their unspoken motives and desires.
He became a master reader of people.
Totally. It also made him the perfect social companion, as he could effortlessly attune himself to others' energies, making them feel heard and understood. With tranquil and productive social relations free from petty conflicts, he could then focus a far greater proportion of his time and attention on his writing, his scientific endeavors, his inventions, on the true work of mastery.
Freeing up mental energy.
Absolutely. It's important to note that Franklin was naturally a very emotional man. He didn't repress these emotions, but rather transformed them, turning his focus outward.
Okay.
Instead of obsessing over himself, he thought deeply of how others were experiencing the world, what they were feeling, what they were missing, what their true desires were. Emotions, when directed inward, can cause self-absorption. But emotions seen and understood inside other people create genuine empathy and bring a deep, almost intuitive understanding of what makes them tick.
Channeling emotion into empathy.
Yes. For Franklin, this outward focus gave him a profound feeling of lightness and ease, freeing his life from unnecessary battles and allowing his mind to flourish. For you, the listener, Greene strongly encourages analyzing past negative events like sabotage, firings, or conflicts objectively from others' perspectives.
Post-mortem.
Right. This rigorous process helps you see hidden patterns, understand your own role, and identify personal flaws, leading to increasing self-detachment, a crucial step in emotional maturity and social intelligence.
Our second strategy is deceptively simple. but incredibly powerful to speak through your work. Greene asserts that your work, the tangible output of your efforts, is the single greatest means at your disposal for expressing your social intelligence.
Let the results talk.
Exactly, for demonstrating your competence and reliability without needing to explicitly state it.
This strategy is strikingly evident when we contrast two historical medical figures, Ignaz Semmelweis with William Harvey.
Okay, tell us about them.
Semmelweis, a brilliant Hungarian doctor in the mid-19th century, was obsessed with childbed fever, and through meticulous observation, he discovered that simple hand-washing could have mortalities in his hospital.
Huge discovery.
Monumental. However, despite his groundbreaking discovery, he was widely shunned and rejected for his brusque, confrontational approach. He alienated his colleagues and superiors, often accusing them directly of being murderers for not adopting his findings.
Oof. Not good politics.
Terrible politics. His scientific brilliance was undeniable, but his profound social ineptitude led to him being dismissed, his ideas ignored, and he died tragically in an asylum.
Tragic.
In stark contrast, William Harvey, who discovered blood circulation centuries earlier, gained widespread acceptance for his revolutionary theory despite overturning centuries of established medical thought. Harvey understood that even a scientist must play the courtier, in a sense.
Play the game a bit.
You have to. He involved others in his work, showing them his experiments and discoveries, making them emotionally attached to his theory through shared experience. He published his results in a thoughtful, well-reasoned, and easy-to-read book, meticulously detailing his findings.
Clear communication.
Crucial. And then, crucially, he quietly allowed his book and his work to speak for itself. He knew that by overtly asserting himself or engaging in petty public debates after its publication, he would merely call attention to his own person and not to the undeniable truth of the work itself.
Let the work stand on its own.
Right. He refused to give fuel to the foolishness of others by engaging in petty battles, and any opposition to his theories, unable to stand against the evidence, eventually withered away on its own.
Smart. This principle isn't just for scientists or historical figures. It applies across all fields. Consider Teresita Fernandez, a world-renowned conceptual artist working with resistant materials like steel, creating large-scale public installations.
Okay, an artist's perspective.
Yes. Her public persona, interestingly, became another form of her art, a deliberate extension of her creative expression. She consciously molded her appearance and communication style to suit her changing circumstances, deliberately playing against the stereotype of the disorganized, reclusive artist.
Crafting her image.
Totally. She transformed herself into an eloquent lecturer, exposing her challenging work and complex ideas to the public at large, engaging diverse audiences. Audiences were often intrigued by the discrepancy between her pleasant, composed surface and the profound, sometimes challenging content of her discourse.
Creating intrigue.
She became deeply versed in many fields outside art, from mining to architecture, combining these diverse interests in her work and, in the process, exposing herself to a wide range of people and ideas. She consciously taught herself to mingle equally well and comfortably with graphite miners as she did with sophisticated gallery dealers.
Adapting to the room.
A kind of modern courtier flexibility that made her life as an artist much easier and made it impossible for her to be typecast or easily dismissed. Essentially, her public persona became a material she could cast and transform according to her needs and desires, a tool for her mastery.
So Greene connects this back to the core idea of social intelligence in your work. By being efficient, thorough, and detail-oriented in what you do, you inherently demonstrate that you are thinking of the group at large and actively advancing its collective cause.
Actions speak louder.
Right. By making what you write or present clear, concise, and easy to follow, you show your deep care and respect for your audience. By involving other people in your projects, crediting them, and gracefully accepting their feedback, you reveal your comfort and competence within group dynamics.
Team player.
And most importantly, solid, undeniable work protects you from the political conniving and malevolence of others. It is incredibly hard to argue with tangible, high-quality results you consistently produce.
But work is the shield.
Exactly. This social intelligence, he argues, leads to a fluid, sensitive way of thinking and greater creativity, preventing you from becoming rigidly intellectual and inward, locked away in your own head. It fosters a more holistic, adaptable mind.
Our third strategy for cultivating social intelligence is deeply challenging, but profoundly rewarding: to see yourself as others see you.
The mirror again, but a social one.
Yes. This is difficult because it requires a profound level of self-objectivity, especially when our natural strengths, quirks, or even our eccentricities might be perceived as weaknesses or off-putting traits by others.
Temple Grandin, the renowned scientist and advocate for autism, offers an incredibly insightful perspective here.
Ah, yes. Her story is amazing.
It really is. Born with autism, she faced enormous social challenges. She often felt like an alien observing strange humans interact, struggling profoundly with subtle nonverbal cues and the nuances of social exchange, yet, paradoxically, with animals, particularly cattle.
A completely different connection.
Almost telepathic powers to read their moods, understand their desires, and calm them down. She recognized early that her greatest weakness was precisely in the social arena with humans. Instead of being defeated by this, she systematically approached human interactions as an intellectual exercise, much like solving a complex puzzle, removing the emotional charge.
Analyzing social interaction.
Exactly. For instance, she vividly recalled being fired after providing blunt, direct criticism of factory designs in a letter sent directly to the president, not involving the engineers who had designed them, and thereby unintentionally injuring male egos.
Ouch. A common mistake.
Yeah. By visualizing these moments, by meticulously replaying them like a tape, she intellectually understood that she was making coworkers feel insecure and inferior, even though that wasn't her intention. Her realization didn't stem from traditional empathy, which she struggles with. Instead, it was a rigorous intellectual exercise, a logical deduction.
Understanding cause and effect.
Precisely. But precisely because her emotions weren't so deeply involved in the social dynamic, it was ironically easier for her to make the necessary corrections to her behavior. In the future, she would deliberately discuss ideas with engineers first, involve them in the process, and never criticize people directly, always focusing on the problem, not the person.
Learning and adapting.
This intellectual self-correction, even without typical emotional empathy, allowed her to systematically correct her behavior, build effective working relationships, and ultimately thrive in her field. Greene emphasizes that those qualities peculiar to our makeup, our unique traits, are precisely what we must pay the deepest attention to and learn to lean on strategically in our rise to mastery.
Embrace your uniqueness, but understand how it lands.
Exactly. He notes, mastery is like swimming. It is too difficult to move forward when we are creating our own resistance or swimming against the current. Know your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and then move with your strengths, adapting your approach to the social current.
Our fourth, and perhaps most difficult strategy for navigating the social landscape, is to suffer fools gladly, which essentially means skillfully managing social obstacles and difficult people with grace and strategic patience.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Greene warns against displaying any rebellious or eccentric streaks too overtly, especially during the apprenticeship phase when you're still establishing yourself. The workplace, he advises, is often a theater where you are always, to some extent, wearing a mask.
Putting on a professional face.
Right. Reserving your most interesting, colorful, and perhaps controversial thoughts for trusted friends and confidants outside of work. It's simply not worth the bother or the energy drain of freely expressing every opinion or challenging every minor point, especially when it won't lead to productive change.
Pick your battles. This wisdom, Greene suggests, often comes from hard-earned experience. Goethe, despite his towering genius, found court life unbearable during his apprenticeship as a young public servant.
Goethe had an apprenticeship.
Sort of, yeah, in public service. Courtiers were absorbed in petty gossip and political intrigues, never discussing the plays themselves or his serious ideas for reform. He quickly learned that freely expressing his opinions on complex matters would only lead to them being lost in heated political dialogue.
Talking past each other.
And ironically, nobody seemed genuinely interested in his opinions. They found it more interesting to tell the celebrated novelist their ideas and see his reaction. This taught him the high cost of indiscriminate free expression and the profound need to adapt to social realities.
Learning when to hold back.
Exactly. Greene then outlines some common, deadly realities you'll inevitably encounter and how masters navigate them. First, rigidity. People inherently prefer familiar ideas and will resist new ones, even with overwhelming proof.
Inertia.
Huge inertia. Look at the history of science. New paradigm-shifting ideas are often fought to the death by those entrenched in old ways of thinking, whose careers and identities are tied to the status quo. You must understand this human tendency and manage your expectations.
Don't expect instant acceptance.
No. Second, self-obsessiveness. In the work environment, almost everyone, consciously or unconsciously, thinks of themselves first. Many disguise their self-interest, often with a moral or saintly aura, or by showing ostentatious support for the right causes or groups.
The appearance of virtue.
Right. Confused by these appearances, we can easily be misled into thinking their motives are pure. Learn to look past the facade to the underlying self-interest. Third, passive aggression. Yeah, this is hidden hostility, subtle sabotage, or indirect resistance. The best options, Greene advises, are to either actively avoid such people in their games, or, if confronted, return the attack with something equally indirect and subtle, strategically signaling that messing with you will indeed come with a price.
Setting boundaries subtly.
Without engaging in overt conflict. At all costs, avoid entangling yourself emotionally in their dramas. They are often masters at controlling the dynamic, and you will almost always lose if you play their game.
Don't get sucked in.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Greene argues that developing this crucial social intelligence will not simply help you manage your relations with other people more effectively, saving you emotional energy. Acquiring it also has an immensely beneficial effect on your very ways of thinking and on your creativity in general.
It connects back to creativity.
Yeah. Look at Benjamin Franklin again. His profound ability to home in on the minute details that made people unique, to truly connect to their experience and motivations, and to be patient and open-minded in his dealings with people from many different cultures, became completely integrated into his intellectual labors.
It all blended together.
His sharp eye for detail in scientific work, his fluid manner of thinking that could adapt to new data, and his uncanny way of getting into the minds and voices of his characters in writing all stemmed from this deep social intelligence. In the end, the ability to think inside other people, to intuitively grasp their perspective, is no different from the intuitive feel masters gain in relation to their core field of study.
Wow.
To develop your intellectual powers at the expense of the socials, to become rigidly intellectual and socially naive, is to profoundly retard your own progress to mastery and severely limit the full range of your creative powers. 4. Unleashing creativity. The dimensional mind.
The social skills are actually key for creativity, too.
Exactly. We've talked about discovering your calling and navigating the rigorous transformative apprenticeship phase. We've even explored the critical art of human connection. Now let's shift our focus to what Greene considers the very heart of breakthrough innovation, the engine of true originality. What he calls the dimensional mind.
Okay, the dimensional mind.
The core question here is fascinating. How do masters, despite accumulating vast knowledge and internalizing countless rules and procedures, somehow manage to maintain an almost childlike spirit, a profound openness that allows for continuous, truly groundbreaking creativity?
This is where the process becomes profoundly exciting. The dimensional mind, as Greene describes it, is not passive. It is inherently active and transformative.
It makes things.
It does. It doesn't merely consume information. It constantly creates something new from it, forming novel connections and insights. It's an inborn creative force, and Greene warns that stifling it is a fundamental source of human misery and stagnation.
Don't kill your creativity.
Please don't. The greatest danger to this force isn't a lack of innate talent, which is a common misconception, but rather our own spirit and attitude. We become too comfortable, too attached to what we already know, afraid of entertaining new or unconventional ideas.
Fear the unknown.
Fear of the sheer effort, the potential ridicule, or the inevitable failures that come with risk and true originality. We often prefer familiar ideas and predictable habits, but we pay a steep price. Our minds go dead, we reach an artificial limit, and we become easily replaceable.
Stagnation.
Right. Greene says, quite starkly, you cannot find anything new if you are unwilling to leave the shore. You must, therefore, consciously abandon the deep-seated human need for comfort and security, because true creative endeavors are by their very nature uncertain, inherently risky, and require a willingness to navigate the unknown.
So how do we practically awaken and consistently maintain this incredible dynamic creative force? What are the actionable strategies for cultivating a dimensional mind?
Let's get into those.
Our first strategy for unleashing creativity is to cultivate negative capability. This concept, coined by the poet John Keats, is profoundly insightful.
Negative capability. What's that exactly?
It describes the rare ability to endure and even embrace mysteries and uncertainties, to consciously suspend your ego and your immediate urge for judgment or fixed answers.
Being comfortable with not knowing.
Exactly. Keats famously saw William Shakespeare as the ideal embodiment of negative capability because Shakespeare didn't judge his characters or impose his own moral framework on them. Instead, he opened himself up completely to their complex worlds,
Just presented them.
embracing their ambiguities and contradictions, and simply expressed their reality as it was, even for those considered evil or morally gray. This isn't just poetic conceit. Cultivating negative capability is the single most important factor in your success as a truly creative thinker, whether in arts or sciences.
How does it apply in science?
In science, it directly counters confirmation bias, that insidious human tendency where you unconsciously choose data that fits your existing preconceptions and theories.
Right, looking for what you expect.
The inherent uncertainty of not knowing the answers beforehand is simply too much for most scientists, pushing them to seek premature closure. In the arts, it prevents thoughts from congealing around political dogma, fashionable trends, or predigested ways of looking at the world, ensuring you express a truthful, nuanced observation rather than just a simplistic opinion or prepackaged narrative.
Resisting easy answers.
Right. Consider Michael Faraday, who, despite his scientific brilliance, maintained a profound humility and utterly open mind that allowed him to constantly question, to explore anomalies, and to follow the evidence wherever it led without intellectual prejudice.
Openness.
Similarly, Albert Einstein, while having a deep, almost spiritual, basic need to believe in laws and a profound love for order, dared to question the sacred Newtonian universe when faced with anomalies like the unproven existence of the ether, which seemed to contradict classical physics. He was willing to boldly throw out accepted absolutes, even those admired and worshipped by the scientific establishment. He had no intellectual ties to any particular school of thought.
Free thinking.
And his decision to work on his own allowed him to be as daring and unconventional as he liked, unbound by groupthink. This ability to courageously endure not knowing, to suspend certainty, and to question cherished beliefs is what allows true breakthroughs, as Greene puts it, profoundly. The need for certainty is the greatest disease the mind faces.
Wow, that's powerful. It's the antithesis of creativity.
Our second strategy moves beyond passive absorption to active engagement. Allow for serendipity. This isn't just about getting lucky.
Making your own luck.
Kind of. It's about consciously cultivating an openness to unexpected discoveries and connections. Greene explains that the brain is a dual processing system, constantly working on both conscious and unconscious levels, and we can prime it to recognize these lucky breaks.
Louis Pasteur famously said, "Chance favors the prepared mind." This isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a deep truth about how serendipity actually functions.
Preparedness is key.
It's about maintaining a constant openness of spirit, a readiness to pivot when something unusual appears. Think of Thomas Edison. He employed a simple yet remarkably effective serendipity strategy by constantly recording sound, even if the sound seemed random or irrelevant at first.
Just collecting data.
This relentless experimentation, combined with an unwavering openness to whatever emerged from his efforts, allowed for unexpected breakthroughs like the phonograph. Another key element for cultivating serendipity is analogical thinking, beautifully exemplified by Galileo.
Thinking in analogies, how did he use it?
Well, when people argued that if the Earth moved, a dropped rock wouldn't land at the base of a tower because the Earth would have moved beneath it.
Right, seems logical on the surface.
Galileo, who habitually thought in terms of analogies, immediately visualized the Earth in his mind as a kind of sailing ship in space. He explained to his doubters that a rock dropped from the mast of a moving ship still lands at its base, not behind it, because it shares the ship's horizontal motion.
Ah, brilliant comparison.
This profound ability to see deep connections between seemingly disparate domains, to make abstract ideas relatable and intuitive through analogy, is a hallmark of a highly creative mind, allowing for novel solutions to emerge.
So it's about cultivating that constant openness of spirit, actively practicing and training your mind in analogical thinking, and consciously looking for those new and surprising connections that others might miss simply because they aren't prepared to see them.
You have to be ready for the unexpected.
Our third strategy for unleashing creativity is to alternate the mind through the current.
The current, what's that?
This describes a constant dynamic dialogue between our internal thoughts, our speculation, our theories, our hypotheses, and external reality, which involves observation, experimentation, and testing.
Thinking and doing.
Exactly. It's like a drill penetrating wood, going deeper and deeper, not through brute force, but through continuous alternating motion. If we only speculated without observing and testing, our ideas would remain random, disconnected fantasies.
It's daydreaming.
Right. If we only observed without speculating, it would lead nowhere, just a pile of facts without meaning. But by constantly cycling and moving between the two, we pierce deeper into reality, refining our understanding with each rotation.
This current has powerful applications far beyond just traditional science. Consider the great inventor Buckminster Fuller,
Bucky Fuller, yeah.
who constantly came up with audacious ideas for inventions and new technologies. Early in his career, Fuller noticed a common pattern. Many people have truly great ideas, but are paralyzed by the fear of putting them into action.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. They prefer to engage in endless discussions or critiques, writing about their fantasies, but never actually playing them out in the real world. To deliberately set himself apart from these dreamers, he created a strategic process of forging what he called artifacts.
Making tangible things.
Yes, he would make physical models of his wildest ideas, and if they seemed at all feasible, he would proceed to invent functional prototypes. By actually translating his abstract ideas into tangible, testable objects, he could get an objective sense of whether they were potentially interesting and viable or merely ridiculous fantasies.
Reality testing.
His dime-action car, unveiled in 1933, was one such artifact. A three-wheeled, teardrop-shaped vehicle meant to be highly efficient and revolutionary. By making it public and testing it, he quickly realized faults in its design and continually reformulated it.
Learning from the prototype.
While it didn't succeed commercially, it profoundly influenced future designers. Fuller expanded this artifact strategy to all his ideas, including his most famous one, the geodesic dome. This iterative process is a powerful model for any new product or idea in business and commerce.
Build, measure, learn.
Pretty much. You produce a prototype, you get real-world public feedback, and you cycle through revisions rapidly. This process objectively reveals flaws and helps you create something truly compelling and effective. As Greene summarizes this dynamic, alternating between ideas and artifacts will help you to create something compelling and effective.
Our fourth and final strategy for cultivating creativity is to alter your perspective, specifically by breaking free from what Greene calls typical mental shorthands.
Mental shortcuts.
Our minds, for efficiency, often fall into these habitual patterns of thought that, while useful for daily tasks, significantly limit our capacity for true creativity. But truly creative people consciously resist this tendency.
They think differently.
After a groundbreaking discovery is made public, we often wonder why no one else thought of it before. Greene explains this is precisely because creative people learn to look at what is hidden in plain sight, not rushing to generalize, label, or dismiss.
Greene meticulously identifies several common patterns or shorthands we must consciously subvert to unlock our creative potential. First, looking at the what instead of the how.
What does that mean?
When a project goes wrong, our conventional tendency is to immediately look for a single cause or a simple explanation. We focus on what isn't working, like uninspired writing, a failing product, or a sluggish process. However, problems are often far more complicated and holistic, residing in the process itself.
The system, not just the part.
Exactly. Henry Ford provides a powerful counterexample to this. Trying to speed up his car production, he watched his men scramble to assemble a car that stood still. He didn't focus on simply getting better tools or making the men move faster, the what of the problem. Instead, he imagined something completely different, a radical shift in how things were done. He envisioned the cars moving and the men standing still, each worker doing a small, specific portion as the car moved from position to position. The how.
The assembly line.
The revolutionary assembly line, which by 1914 produced a finished car in 90 minutes, a miraculous saving of time, simply by reframing the problem from what to how.
Incredible shift in perspective.
Second, we tend to ignore anomalies. We overlook strange phenomena, unusual data points, or unexpected occurrences that don't fit our current theories or expectations.
The outliers.
Right. In the late 19th century, scientists noted that rare metals like uranium were emitting luminescent rays without exposure to light, an oddity that didn't fit existing physics. But almost no one paid much attention. Marie Curie, however,
Curie,
with her incredibly open and curious mind, intuited that this anomaly was precisely the subject that needed rigorous investigation. For 4 long years, she devoted her life to studying this strange phenomenon, which she eventually named radioactivity. Her discovery completely altered the prevailing view of matter.
revolutionized physics.
Fundamentally changed physics, revealing it to be volatile and complex rather than static and inert. For Charles Darwin, the crux of his theory of evolution came not from observing the common, but from meticulously looking at mutations, the strange and random variations in nature that often set a species in a new evolutionary direction.
Focusing on the exceptions.
Greene refers to anomalies as creative mutations that often represent the future, revealing it before anyone else has the eyes to see. Similarly, in Arthur Conan Doyle's Silver Blaze, Sherlock Holmes solved a crime by noting a negative cue.
The dog that didn't bark.
Exactly. The family dog hadn't barked on the night of the murder. This seemingly insignificant absence meant the murderer was someone the dog knew. Our natural human tendency is to fixate on what is present, what we can immediately see and hear. Creative types like Holmes think more broadly, visualizing and discerning absence as easily as presence.
Seeing what's missing.
Understanding that what isn't there can be as informative as what is.
Wow.
Third, and this is a profound one that challenges our very mode of thought, is thinking in words instead of images.
Words limit us.
They can. Language, with its inherent grammar, syntax, and logic, while powerful, can sometimes lock us into rigid, linear forms of thinking. As the writer Sidney Hook observed when Aristotle drew up his famous categories, he was, in a sense, unconsciously projecting the very grammar of the Greek language onto the cosmos itself.
Shaping reality through language.
Shaping how we understood reality for centuries. If there are no existing words for certain concepts, we tend not to think of them or even perceive them. Language can be a tool that, while incredibly useful, is often too tight and restrictive for truly novel, groundbreaking thought, confining our imagination within its boundaries.
This last point, about thinking beyond the confines of words, is so vital for truly unlocking creative power. Greene introduces the fascinating phenomenon of synesthesia.
Where senses cross over.
Exactly. Moments where the stimulation of one sense instantaneously provokes a sensation in another, like hearing a particular sound and intuitively thinking of a specific color, or reading words and experiencing distinct tastes. Studies indicate that synesthesia is far more prevalent among artists and high-level, innovative thinkers, speculating that it represents a high degree of interconnectivity in the brain, which also plays a significant role in broader intelligence. The key takeaway for us, the listeners, isn't that you need to suddenly develop synesthesia, but rather to understand what it represents.
The underlying principle.
Right. A mind that isn't confined to a single sensory input or a linear mode of thought. Truly creative people don't simply think in words. They consciously or unconsciously use all of their senses, their sight, sound, touch, even smell, engaging their entire bodies in the creative process.
Thinking with the whole body.
They find sense cues that stimulate their thoughts on many levels, whether it be a strong smell sparking an idea or the tactile feel of an object informing a design. This multisensory approach means they are more open to alternative ways of thinking, creating, and sensing the world around them.
Broadening perception.
To foster your own creative spark, you must actively expand your notion of thinking and creativity beyond the rigid confines of words and purely intellectual conceptualizations. Consciously stimulating your brain and senses from all directions, engaging with the world through a broader perceptual lens, will help unlock your natural creativity and powerfully revive your original, uninhibited mind. V, the pinnacle, ultimate mastery and the universal man.
So creativity is really about breaking patterns and using all our senses.
Exactly. We've journeyed from discovering your unique calling through the rigorous and transformative apprenticeship, explored the critical art of human connection, and just now delved into the profound strategies for unleashing creativity. Now, what is the ultimate destination? What does Greene describe as the pinnacle of this incredible journey?
The end game.
It's the ultimate form of mastery, the profound ability to connect all fields, to transcend conventional boundaries, and to see the underlying unity in seemingly disparate domains.
This ultimate form of mastery, Greene explains, is essentially a return to reality, mirroring a powerful historical trend seen across various philosophies and eras.
Like what?
Think of Taoism, with its concept of the way, an underlying flow and interconnectedness in the universe. Or Stoicism, with its logos, the ordering principle of the universe, suggesting an inherent rationality and connection.
Ancient wisdom.
Right. Perhaps the greatest historical example of this ideal was the Renaissance concept of the universal man, epitomized by figures like Leonardo da Vinci individuals, who managed to connect and master all branches of knowledge, seamlessly blending art and science, philosophy, and engineering.
The Renaissance ideal.
Today, Greene argues, we are witnessing early signs of a modern Renaissance, driven by accelerating knowledge and technology. In the sciences, we see neuroscience actively seeking to intersect with a multitude of other disciplines, from psychology to economics,
Breaking down silos.
unraveling the biological basis of thought and behavior. There's a growing interest in complexity theories, which are being applied to seemingly disparate fields like economics, biology, and computer science, revealing universal patterns.
Finding common ground.
We also see it in the broadening of our thinking to entire ecosystems in biology, moving beyond individual species, and a more holistic, interconnected approach to health and medicine that considers the whole person and their environment. This trend, Greene asserts, is not just a passing fad, it is the inevitable future, because the fundamental purpose of consciousness itself has always been to connect us to reality, to see the deeper truths.
Wow. And here's a truly profound insight. As you diligently pursue this path to mastery, your brain is, in fact, radically altered.
Physically changed.
Yes. Years of focused practice, active experimentation, and deep observation physically and chemically transform its very structure. It becomes, as Greene vividly describes it, a vibrant ecosystem where all forms of thinking, analytical, intuitive, emotional, creative, associate, connect, and cross-pollinate,
A connected web.
mirroring the inherent complexity of life itself. The artificial boundaries between your internal world and the external world become more fluid, more permeable than you might ever imagine. Greene defines true intelligence as moving toward thinking that is more contextual, more sensitive to the intricate relationships between things.
Seeing the connections.
More about seeing the whole system rather than isolated parts. This growing similarity between the dynamic, interconnected structure of the master's brain and the complex, interconnected nature of life itself represents the ultimate return to reality, a state of profound attunement.
That's incredible. This journey to ultimate mastery also inherently encourages what Greene calls the power of slowness, a concept that directly challenges our pervasive modern impatience and the relentless pressure to rush.
Slow down to go faster.
In a way, yes. When it comes to creative endeavors, time is always relative, and you will inevitably experience a powerful, almost primal desire to rush to the finished product, to see immediate results. Greene asserts that the single greatest action you can take for acquiring profound creative power is to consciously and deliberately reverse this natural impatience.
Resist the urge to rush.
You must learn to take deep pleasure in the laborious research process itself, to enjoy the slow cooking of the idea, allowing the organic growth and unforeseen connections that naturally take shape over time, often at their own pace.
Let it simmer.
Exactly. While deadlines are undeniably important in the practical world, the longer you can allow a project to truly absorb your mental energies to gestate and evolve, the richer, deeper, and more profound it will inevitably become. From a future vantage point looking back, those extra months or even years devoted to the meticulous process will not seem painful or laborious at all. That is an illusion of the present that will vanish.
Perspective changes things.
Time, Greene stresses, is not your enemy. It is, in fact, your greatest ally on the path to ultimate mastery, if you learn to embrace its rhythm.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? Mastery isn't some accident of inherited talent, nor is it a matter of blind luck.
It's a choice, a path.
It's a conscious path about identifying and following your natural inclinations, that inner whisper, and the deep desire that stirs you from within. Everyone, Greene argues, has such inclinations, a unique spark. This desire is not motivated by superficial egotism or fleeting ambition,
Not about ego.
but by a deep, almost biological expression of something natural, something that marked you at birth as uniquely yourself. In following your deepest inclinations and actively moving toward mastery, you make a profound and lasting contribution to society, enriching it with discoveries, insights, and innovations that only you can bring forth.
Your unique gift.
It truly makes the most of the inherent diversity in nature and among human society. To retreat into limited goals, to settle for immediate pleasures, to merely consume what others create, Greene argues this is, in fact, the height of selfishness, a squandering of your unique potential.
Wow, strong words.
Alienating yourself from your deepest inclinations can only lead to pain, disappointment, and a gnawing sense that you have wasted something truly unique within yourself. Think about the legendary Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Goethe again.
After the enormous popular success of his novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther, which made him an overnight celebrity, he could have easily given the public an encore, simply creating more of the same, capitalizing on his fame.
Taking the easy route.
But he deliberately denied them that, choosing instead to follow what he called his demon, an inner spirit of restlessness, a relentless intellectual curiosity that impelled him to explore far beyond literature, deep into science, philosophy, and art.
Following his inner voice.
This defiance of public clamor and his courageous willingness to give up immediate fame and financial gain for a deeper pursuit was an act of tremendous courage. His second youth, lasting from his mid-50s to his late 60s, where he produced an insane medley of work across writing, rigorous scientific experiments, and profound philosophical discussions.
A true Renaissance man, late in life.
It was a testament to channeling this powerful, innate spirit with unwavering discipline and a commitment to broad exploration.
It's a powerful testament that the inherent nature of the human brain, its fundamental need to make connections, to understand, to synthesize, will ultimately win out against artificial limitations. Technology today offers unprecedented means to build connections between fields and ideas that were previously isolated.
The tools are there.
The artificial barriers we've erected between the arts and the sciences will inevitably melt away under the collective human pressure to know, to understand, and to express our common reality in its fullest, most interconnected form. Our ideas in this profound process will become closer to nature, more alive, more organic, and ultimately more truthful. Outro.
What a profound journey we've taken today, diving deep into Robert Greene's transformative principles of mastery.
It's really covered a lot of ground.
We've uncovered the essential path from discovering your unique calling through the rigorous and transformative apprenticeship phase to mastering the vital art of human connection and finally unleashing your profound creative power.
From start to finish.
It's a powerful and liberating reminder that this path isn't just for a select, gifted few. It's accessible to all who commit to the process with discipline, patience, and a relentless curiosity.
Indeed. As you reflect on this deep dive, consider the profound difference between merely consuming information, passively reading, listening, watching, and actively transforming it through your own engagement and effort.
Active versus passive.
What hidden connections, what novel insights might you discover in your own field, in your own life, if you commit to this deep, continuous process of observation, experimentation, and rigorous, critical self-reflection? And how might embracing every challenge, every discomfort, every perceived failure as a vital and necessary part of your unique journey to mastery unlock capabilities you never knew you possessed?
A truly fantastic and empowering thought to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into mastery.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making those incredible transformative connections.